Hello friends, in this video we will see how to do a port forwarding, what is port forwarding and why it is used. If you are interested in networking and Windows Server administration, you can subscribe this channel to get more updates. I am Microsoft certified solution expert in productivity. So we will do the port forwarding with two different routers. The one router is Cisco RV series, that is Cisco RV042, and another one is Netgear JNR 1010. So let's see what is port forwarding and why it is used. Basically, if you search on the internet and any other website, you will get the different website on the internet with the different definition of the port forwarding. But the simple one is that port forwarding is widely used to redirect computer signal ports between LAN computers and remote computers on the internet. LAN computer means a local network computers, and remote computer means from the internet. To simplify it, the port forwarding feature is helpful if you need to access an internet connected device or service from anywhere in the world. That means if you have a machine which has a web server inside your organization or inside your home, you can still access that particular website or your camera from outside the world. It allows you to send requests across the servers on the internet without other people knowing the original location or IP address of these requests, which guarantees your privacy on the internet. The example for this, I have a public IP on my Cisco RV Series router and I'm connected with the internet, and I have a public IP, and we have connected a switch on the LAN, and we have a different servers and a camera, that is IP camera. So what is the use? Now we can say the use of port forwarding is, for example, you have a server here and you want to take a remote desktop connection from outside. That means you are on the internet, you are on the outside internet, you are not in this location, you're outside from your location and you want to access this computer, and you have only one public IP. Port forwarding also save our public IP. That means from one single IP we can access our different services, which means from the same IP I can do a RDP connection, that is a remote desktop connection, to this server, and if I have a website running on this server, I can connect with the website from the outside world to this server. If you have a chat server in your organization, on your small company, you can just access that chat software from outside, and also you can see the camera from outside. That means what will happen, you will access your public IP. That means the public IP is a unique IP and is routable on the internet. That means you can access your public IP from anywhere from the world, but as it's a single IP and you have to put that IP on your router, which means that IP will be consumed by the router. Then how you are going to get these access from these machines? That means what we are going to do, we will access our public IP from outside world for a different services, like RDP is a different service, HTTP is a different service, and chat software has a different service, and the IP camera has a different service. We will access our IP outside from our company, and what will be done, like for the port RDP port, we have to forward that IP to this particular computer. Suppose you have an IP address 1111, like 1.1.1.1, you can take it as an example. We have to forward our public IP to 1.1.1.1 and the port will be 3389. That means whenever you will access your RDP connection from outside with your public IP address, you are going to hit your router through internet. You are going to hit your router through internet, and your router will tell the port 3389. That means it has to go to this server. So that particular port will be forwarded to this RDP server. I hope you get the point. And for example, you have a website on this another server, that is a HTTP server, and you want to access your website from outside your company. What you have to do, you have to type the same IP on your browser. Like you have to put the HTTP and then your IP and then / the website name and hit enter. Then what will happen? The request will again go to the router through internet, and at this point the router will say, okay, you want HTTP, that means port 80 and port 443. If you have a secure site connection, that means the 443 will work, and if you have a normal connection, then port 80 will work. The router will get to know that port 80, I have to send port 80 to this machine, that is HTTP machine. Suppose you have an IP address, your local IP address can be any IP, any private IP. For example, you can say that is 1.1.1.2. That means you have to do a port forwarding on your router for HTTP connection should go to the 1.1.1.2, and from outside you are just typing your public IP / and your website name, and you will get the access of the website from this server. That means a single IP can do a remote desktop connection. The same IP can do a HTTP connection. That means one single IP, a multiple service can be accessed. And you have a chat server, the same thing will go on. That means the request will come to the router, and router will say, okay chat, you want a chat server that is on a port 777. It works on port 777. Okay, I have a configuration inside me, and port 77 is configured for, suppose the IP is 1.1.1.3. okay, the port 777 connection will be forwarded to chat server, and you will get the access of your chat. And same goes with the IP. For example, 805 port, you have given your camera the IP address is 1.1.1.4. that means again from the you have to access the software which if the service provider have given you. You have to access your public IP on port 805. That means you will type the IP address, and IP address again will go to the router, and it will say, okay, the 805, you need a 805. That means 805, it has a configuration and it knows the address that 805 port has to be forwarded on 1.1.1.4. One thing more to notice, suppose you have a firewall connection between your internet and your router. For a security purpose, many of the company do that. You have to open these port, like you have to open RDP port and HTTP port, chat port, and your camera port 805, 777, 80, 443 and 3389 on your firewall so that they can come, because if a firewall is blocking that connection, that means you will not be able to set the connection between these machines, the local machines, to the internet. Firewall has to be open, and your firewall has opened these ports, and router will send this request to the different server for their services, and you have inbuilt firewall inside your server as well, or even your computer as well. So what you have to do, you have to open those ports on your firewall as well. I do not recommend you to just turn off your firewall for your servers. I want it to be turned on, and just you can just open the particular port for which you want to do that. I have configuration with port RDP3389, and I can show you how we can do that. So let's jump to the console and we will access both the routers, and we will see how to forward the ports on the both routers. Now we are on the machine, and let's try to open our Netgear router first. So I have a IP address to open that router is 10.10.10.1, and the administrator and password for that. And see here, you can see the number of device attached. Guest network is not enabled, status good. This is my SSID and the password is that. So what we can do, if you want to check the basic settings, like you can go to the internet, and if you want to do provide a public IP to a router, that will be a static IP. If you have a dynamic IP, your ISP has given you a dynamic IP, you can select the dynamic IP. You need to just connect the internet cable to the internet port of your router, and it will pick the IP from the your ISP, and it will work fine. But if you have a public IP, or that means the public IP has to be put like it's a static IP, so you have to select the static option and you have to put the IP address. This is a connection from another router, that's why I have given it this one. This is my private IP, it's not a public IP. But if you have a public IP, you have to put the public IP address, and then we can go to the advanced setting for the port forwarding. Let me show you, like first of all, let's see how many devices are connected. We have this device, for example, you can see 10.10.10.4 has our web server running on it. So what we can do, we want to do a port forwarding to a 10.10.10.4 for our HTTP port. So what we can go to the advanced setup and select the port forwarding option, and once it is clicked, see we have a predefined service here. You can see FTP, HTTP, IP, phone, net meeting, and all these settings are predefined. If you want to do a HTTP, and I have done this for 10.10.10.4, that is my local LAN IP, I can select the protocol, that is a service name, and just put the IP4 and click on add, and it will add this IP. That means the whatever connection asking for a HTTP connection to this router, it will forward the HTTP connection to this IP, that is 4. It says okay, it is forwarded. That means HTTP external start port and external end port and internal start port and there are starting port and end port. There are number of protocols. So if you want to particularly open only one port, you should type that external should be 80 start port, and the end port should be also 80, and the internal start port should be 80 and end port should be 80 for HTTP. It will open only a single port. If you give it a option with like 80 to 85, that means 5 port will be open, like 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, all the ports will be open. So you need to select only that particular port. What if you can see we don't have a HTTPS here, but if I have a secure connection and I want that 443 to be enabled for 10.10.10.4 again, because my website is there and it is a secure website. So what can I do? I can do a add custom service. You can just click on add custom service. You have to type the service name, that I can say secure web, and protocol I can select TCP basically, but I select the both. And here you can see the range of the port start from 1 to 65,535, but my start port will be 443 and the end port will be 443. And again I am going to put this on 4. That means my website is set for 10.10.10.4. I also have another PC like Jack PC here with a 10.10.10.43. If I want that to be configured as a RDP port, I can do a forwarding for RDP. And if you see here, you don't see RDP. Again, what we have to do, I have to do add a custom service, type the port as a remote desktop, and the port is 3389, and I will point it to IP43 and I'll say apply. Now all the connection, like someone asking for a public IP, or what you have to do for the remote desktop, you have to select this, like you can type, okay, I believe it's stuck, just okay, it came back. For remote desktop there are different service, so that means there will be a different console to access these service. For remote I have to type MCSE and I will type OK, and I will just type the IP address for 10.10.10.43, and this will really go to this, but at this time I don't have to type 43 because from the local internet, from the local LAN, that is local area network, you can take your machine remote with this IP, because this is a local IP. Here your point is to understand, if you want to take a remote from your local IP, that means you have to do 10.10.10.43 on your LAN and you will get the remote. But if you are from the outside, now we are outside, we are not on the local LAN, so which IP we have to provide it here? The same, the IP on which the Netgear router is configured. That means if we go here, and that is our public IP. Here it's not a real public IP, but in your case if it is a real public IP, that means this IP should be point out here, like 192.168.2.100. Now if we click on connect, right now it will not connect. If I see, it will not connect because there is no connection between these machines. I have not configured it as a remote desktop, but in your case you have to put your public IP here, that is a router IP, and you can click on connect and you will see the connection. For remote desktop connection, you should enable your remote desktop from advanced system settings, remote, and you should allow the connection. If you say by default it is don't allow, you have to allow the connection and you should click on OK, and by doing this it will automatically open the port on the firewall. And if you have a website on the server, I recommend you not to just turn off your firewall, what you can do, the firewall is connected, and if you want to just open your port 80, you can do an inbound. You can just create a new role and you just put the port, click on next, and you see here the local all ports are specified port. If I see 80 and comma 443, next, allow the connection, next, private domain and public, and click on next. If you just click uncheck that, that means you have a public connection. That means from the public internet you can get connect to this machine, and in a local environment you will not get the remote. So by default it is there. So you can click on next, type the name and click on finish. By default I have already done that here. If you see the web server, I have already done that, but you can just click on finish and your port will be open. If you see here, I have done that. Allow the connection. You see the advanced for domain, private and public. Protocol is 80 and 443 are open. That means the request from the router, the port 80 and port 443 request from the router will be forwarded to this, and these ports are open on the computer. That means the website on this server will be serving to the internet site. So now let's go to our another router, that is our RV series, and that has a real public IP on it. So let's go to the router. I am in a local environment, so that's why I'm just typing a local IP for my router and putting the password for the Cisco router. Okay, if I have it pre-configured, no. Good. Okay, this should work. Okay, we are on the router Cisco RV042. This has a 2 WAN port. We can configure it as a 2 WAN port, and we can do a load balancing with the internet on this router. And where you have to go, I'm just concerned about port forwarding at this time, but this router has many other features like VPN, you have a firewall inside, port management, and many other settings are there. So where we have to go just on setup, and we have to do a forwarding. And here what we can do, if you see here 244, this machine, like if you say this machine has an IP address, if I show you the IP address of this machine, that is Cisco, it is connected with both the routers. If you see, it is 192.168.2.4. so I'm just closing it. What I have done a real forwarding to this machine from outside the world. I just don't want to reveal the public IP, that's why I'm not showing you the public IP. And what I have done, I have selected the remote. This router has a more service than the other one. I have selected the TCP RDP on a TCP 3389, and I just pointed it to a IP address 192.168.2.4. that is this computer, and right now it is RDP, it is enabled. If I uncheck this, that means it is disabled. And for example, if you have a service here, and what if you want any other service which is not predefined here, that means what we can do, we can go to the service management and we can type the service name like my external chat server or my internal chat server. Chat server. Okay, and if it works on UDP or TCP or whatever, if it works on TCP, that means TCP the port range should be like 777 to 777, sorry 7. If you do it 778 or 779, that means the port range like 777, 778 and 779 will be open, but I don't want that. Just for the security reasons, I'll just open that and I will say add to list. Now this port has been added to the list. I say OK, close it, and I will say add a new, and I will select my internal chat, and I want that go to 192.168.2.4, the same computer, because I want to take a remote of that computer and I want to configure my chat server. Again, I want to connect with the chat service with that computer, because the chat server is also installed on that machine. I would say enable, and I will say add to list. Now this chat is enabled. Now what we have to do in order to connect, for example, you have a chat software. On that software, if we have option to connect to the server, on that server we have to put the IP address of our public IP address and username, password, and that will be connected through internet to our router, and port 777 will be forwarded to this computer and we will get the service. After doing this, we have to save this configuration. Just you have to click save. Now the configuration has saved, and let's see how if our RDP works or not. So this is the IP, and I will take a remote with a different IP because I'm just disconnecting it, and I will open a remote desktop connection from another computer. And right now this is my public IP. I'm selecting the public IP and I'll say connect. I'll hide some part of the public IP and I'll say connect, and let's see if we are really connected to that or not. See, now we are connected to over that same server. So friends, if you like the video, please subscribe the channel and do comment if in case of any disconnect.